Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Lawsplaining the Interwebs. I am your host, Nick Rekieta, owner of Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. If you're ever in Minnesota and you run into any legal issues, please contact me and I'll see if I can help out. Okay, so today I have a little bit of a different story for you. This is a legal story, but it's not a legal story in the sense we're used to, whereas this is a legal non-action for the time being. Okay, so let me give you a little background. This is about the ElDewrito team, which is related to a game called Halo Online, produced by 343 Studios. This is an online Halo for the Russian PC market, because apparently Microsoft hasn't figured out that the Halo IP is extremely popular and marketable, and a massive online shooter in the United States on PC would only make like $1 billion. So that aside, they created this Halo Online project in Russia. They ended up postponing or delaying the project. Some people thought it was scrapped or abandoned, but that's neither here nor there. They halted production, okay? And then the files, the source files for this game were leaked. And some people picked them up, and then a modding community has built mods around the leaked game. And they are trying to recreate like the Halo 3 multiplayer experience for PC users, and then of course modding it and making new maps and all sorts of stuff like that. So this has been going on for a while, and Microsoft has finally stepped in. There was a new release very, very recently, the 0.6 version release of this project, and it is growing in popularity very quickly. So Microsoft has issued a statement about this. The team has issued a response. The ElDewrito team has issued a response, and I'm going to cover both of those very quickly. They're like 2-page articles each, and we're going to talk about this aspect of, I guess, lawyering, legal work, which is a little different than the normal stuff we cover, because the normal stuff is like a lawsuit or some sort of threatening action. This is what a different route to legal action looks like. And that's always interesting. It's interesting to me, the kind of creative solutions that come outside of a courtroom. And so I thought maybe it would be interesting to you guys. And for people who, like me, until today didn't even realize that Halo had an online PC presence, it's just kind of an interesting throwback to younger days. So I've got a little brandy today for my companion. Let's dig into this. So this is from HaloWaypoint.com. This is 343 Studios, which is Microsoft's development arm. This is their website for disseminating Halo-related content and news. Today we want to let our community know that Microsoft has initiated actions to protect its Halo intellectual property in the wake of the recent ElDewrito PC release. Community-created content has long been a key pillar in the Halo franchise, and something we have continuously sought to support. From the early beginnings of Red vs. Blue to Forge-made maps and modes, to the Halo Custom Edition, to original recent fan creations like Installation 01, which we'll talk about in a little bit. These projects and others like them have one key factor in common: they fit within Microsoft's established content usage guidelines. Back in 2014, Microsoft 343 and Saber Interactive partnered to develop Halo Online, a title that was being developed exclusively for the Russian market. The game was subsequently put on indefinite hold, but Halo Online ended up in the wild beyond its intended audience and official scope, resulting in DMCA takedown notices being issued by Microsoft. As time went by, Halo Online faded and fell off the radar until the recent exposure of the 0.6 update shined a new light on the current ElDewrito project. While we are humbled and inspired to see the amount of passion poured into this project, the fact remains that it's built on Microsoft-owned assets that were never lawfully released, or authorized for this purpose. As the project reverberated across the community, our team took a step back to assess the materials and explore possible avenues, while Microsoft, like any company, has a responsibility to protect its IP code and trademarks. It's not optional, in other words. And if you are at all versed in the English language, you will note that these two sentences make no sense and are terribly constructed. It's just a disaster of the English language here. So good job, whoever was the copywriter here. But I think we can maybe kind of get a gist of what they're saying. The team took a step back to look at the materials, and Microsoft decided to protect its IP code and trademarks. So sure, okay, great. Their trademark being the Halo franchise in general. Intellectual property being anything created and put down into a tangible medium. This includes any code, any videos, any artwork. All that stuff will be copyrighted and involved and included in its intellectual property, and of course the code that it's written on is protected as well. The code that powers the software. You know what I'm talking about. What am I, an engineer? We'd like to clear up a few areas of confusion we've seen across the community over the past few days regarding ElDewrito and other fan-made projects. In the case of the original Halo Custom Edition, that was a specific add-on to Halo PC to officially empower the mod and content creation community to essentially go nuts with Halo Combat Evolved. It even required a valid Halo PC retail key. More recently, Installation 01 has garnered some buzz and even made headlines for receiving a thumbs up from 343. Installation 01 is an original work built from the ground up in a separate engine that abides by Microsoft's content usage guidelines. So here's the issue. This is a little misleading. Installation 01 is not an original work. It is a derivative work. It is derivative of Halo, clearly and obviously, as it involves lots of same or similar artwork. It involves, the lore and universe of Halo, but Microsoft has granted permission to do these derivative works, and we're going to cover those game content usage rules and guidelines in a little bit. That'll be after this letter. I'll talk about them, but Installation 01 is definitely a derivative work. Microsoft would have the copyright authority to quash that derivative work. However, they have set up these game content usage guidelines to allow people to make derivative works specifically, and that's pretty cool. So let's move on, and then we'll go back to those guidelines. With Halo Online, there's a common misconception that once it was canceled, the assets were either turned over as open source or left for the community's whims as abandonware, neither of which is actually true. Not only did Microsoft issue takedown notices at the time of the original leaks, but many elements of that underlying code and content are still actively being used today and will continue to be used in the future. As Microsoft's need to protect its IP spun up, we reached out to members of the ElDewrito team to have an open discussion about the project and the admittedly difficult situation we all find ourselves in. The ElDewrito team is understandably upset at this outcome given the time they've each invested in the project, but they understand the legal implications and the need to press pause on this work. Do they? That's a cute way to put it. But so they talk about the admittedly difficult situation we all find ourselves in, and the admittedly difficult situation is that ElDewrito right now is fueling the online PC Halo experience and marketing their product and showing Microsoft a tangible interest and showing them that the market for their property that they're not calling it abandoned, but Halo 5 was the last release. We don't really have news about Halo 6. They're filling a need that some segments of the community have been voicing their opinions about for years. So, and they acknowledge that here. One thing remains clear. The community really wants more Halo on PC. As we look ahead, we're very excited about the prospect of an official classic Halo experience making its way to PC, and we hope to be able to partner with the ElDewrito team and broader mod and content creation community to help inform the types of experiences and features our fans desire. While we have nothing to announce today, please note that the PC community is very important to us and top of mind as we work towards the future. We'd like to extend our thanks to the community at large for constantly pouring so much passion into Halo. While it's unfortunate to find ourselves as the bearers of bad legal news, the outpouring of support and excitement is inspiring, and together in partnership with this community, we believe we can really do great things for the future of Halo. Even though you're doing the work for us right now. All right, so let's take a look at these guidelines. So this is a game content usage rules, and I'm not going to go through this whole document because it's full of legal stuff, but let's go through the important parts right here. Here are the magic words from our lawyers. On the condition that you follow the rules below, the rules, Microsoft grants you a personal, non-exclusive, non-sublicensable, non-transferable, revocable limited license for you and to use and display game content and to create derivative works based upon game content strictly for your personal, non-commercial, except as specifically provided below, use. This license is limited and clarified by the specific conditions and restrictions below, so please read them. We can revoke this limited use license at any time and for any reason without liability to you, and if we think you are abusing this license or its intent, you may hear from us. We reserve the right to update this license and the rules from time to time. If you share your items with others, then you must include the following notice on a prior version about the game content, or a prior version of the notice about the game content. That's so people don't get hosed over by Microsoft updating their rules like right after they release some sort of content that's hard to edit. You can put it in a README file or on the web page where it's downloaded or anywhere else that makes sense, so long as anyone who sees your item will easily find this notice. Name of the Microsoft game, copyright Microsoft Corporation. The title of your item was created under Microsoft's game content usage rules using assets from name of the Microsoft game, and it is not endorsed by or affiliated with Microsoft. Wherever you put the notice, you also need to include a link to the game content usage rules so people can find them. Okay, so what does that mean? It means make stuff. It means you have permission to make stuff using our intellectual property. The art that we've created and all that stuff that we have licensed or that we have copyright on, we're giving you the ability to not petition us for things prior to creating them, create freely, and if you start violating these rules, then we'll have a discussion about it. So this, like I said, this is a really cool way for a corporation to craft a legal solution without having a legal dilemma in the first place, and allow people to do this sort of stuff without paying thousands of dollars to a lawyer to ask if they need some sort of permission, without trying to petition Microsoft for it, because Microsoft doesn't have time to respond to this sort of stuff. So what are the rules? There's a whole bunch of rules, but the most important thing, like, you can't reverse engineer our games to access the assets or to otherwise do things that the games don't normally permit in order you to create items. This is one of the problems with the ElDewrito project, is that they have access to content that has not been legally or lawfully released. You can't use game content to create pornography, lewd, obscene, vulgar stuff, blah, blah, blah. You can't sell or otherwise earn any compensation from your item, including through advertisements in the item. This means you can't charge money in exchange for your item, post it on a site that requires subscription or other fees, or post it in a page that used to sell other items or services, even if they have nothing to do with the content. You also can't use game content in an app that you sell in an app store. You know, here's the rest of it. Hopefully you guys can read that on my screen. If not, you can find these just by Googling or Binging, because this is Microsoft. Let's Bing it. Game content usage rules for Xbox. This is the Microsoft wing. It's not just Xbox. It's all the Microsoft property for their video games. Anyway, so there's this set of rules, and like I said, this allows a big corporation like Microsoft to preemptively grant licenses to people to create content. This is a smart way for companies to handle their intellectual property in the digital age, where people make fan art and fan communities, and the corporation benefits from a load of free advertising. Plus, this is a limited license that they can revoke at any time very easily. It allows them some control over the content, but they don't have to control the content. They're not being forced to vigorously protect their IP because they're protecting it right here. They're granting out licenses to anybody in this sort of unilateral agreement. You come and follow these rules and you can do this stuff. We grant you the promise that we're not going to bother you about it. You start breaking these rules, then we have a talk. So anyway, ElDewrito has responded, and if you remember Microsoft's posture, you'll notice their response is careful, but it is a little different than the way Microsoft puts it. So, ElDewrito's 0.6 update has been everything we could have hoped for and so much more. The community response and support we have been given has been exciting, humbling, above all, appreciated. We have poured our hearts and souls into this game, and you have been the best community we could have asked for. Unfortunately, 343 Industries and Microsoft have noticed its success and have reached out to us regarding potential legal action and have requested we temporarily halt development. You can view their article and statement here, which that's what I just read to you a little bit ago, from Halo Waypoint. Microsoft had this to say about 0.6's release. While we're humbled and inspired to see the amount of passion poured into this project, the fact remains it's built on built upon Microsoft-owned assets that were never lawfully released. We read this just a second ago, so I'm not going to read their quote. And so then we're back to ElDewrito's content here. There was no cease and desist, no DMCA, just a brief conversation about what they suggest we do. What does this mean for the future? To be completely honest, we do not know the answer to this question yet. And they should be contacting attorneys. They really should. Because Microsoft's attorneys have Microsoft's best interests in mind, and they're not going to give the ElDewrito team proper legal advice. They're going to give them advice on what they want them to do. So they should defend themselves with attorneys if they can, and if they have a strong community, they should be able to gather some monetary support for that, just to at least get some consultation and have someone ready in case Microsoft takes action against them. Since ElDewrito itself is simply an open source mod and not a Microsoft asset, the mod itself will not be taken down. It is a derivative work. There's clearly some infringement that's going on in copyright, but their mod might actually fall under the game content usage in the actual files for the mod, because they can modify and create derivative works of the Microsoft project or Microsoft products, so long as they're not using assets from that product to do it, right? If they're not unlawfully using those assets. From what we can tell, the mod doesn't use assets. It's the executable file that you have to take that was taken from Microsoft that is required to run the underlying software that the mod is stacking on top of. That's where Microsoft has a real problem. So it appears that any Microsoft assets required to play the game, the MS-23 builds, full 0.6 game zips, etc., will likely be taken down by Microsoft. All we know is that we've been told to temporarily halt development until more information, and we must honor this request. I mean, the must here is not really a must. There's no legal reason that they must honor the request. The must here is one of being very cautious. If they don't honor the request, Microsoft can change posture, and it is very wise of them to halt development until they lawyer up and start assessing their position. During this time, please do not make threats or harass 343 Industries. Can we still play 0.6? Yes, absolutely. Play the hell out of it. Create more incredible Forge creations. You can resume playing 0.6 as normal. It is important to note that ElDewrito itself is not being taken down. Just any and all of Microsoft assets are. In the meantime, enjoy the great game that we have poured our hearts into. The number of people that have played 0.6 has blown us away. At the time of writing this post, there are over 8,000 players playing, and that's a pretty significant number. Here are some cool facts about the stats recorded in just 4 days of playing 0.6. So here's their stats, and you can find this. They just have a little line here at the end. 1 by 1, million by million, in the prescience of dawn, every leaf in that part of the world was moved. So there you go. That's their response. So what is this? What does this mean? All of that stuff. It means that no legal action has been taken against these developers at all at this point. A phone call has been made by an attorney, and some sort of posturing has taken place. But there's no court involved at this point. There's no complaint filed at this point. No lawsuit has been initiated at this point. That means that both Microsoft and ElDewrito as a team currently stand in the same place they stood yesterday or the day before or whatever, in sort of a legal limbo. And until a court intervenes or they reach some sort of settlement, that's where they are. So right now, both sides are proceeding very cautiously. These are just initial conversations. Microsoft has a conundrum here. They can pursue legal action. It's certainly within their right, but they risk alienating a community that is begging for their content. They have a community of people waiting to throw money at a Microsoft product in this field. And Microsoft knows that the interest in Halo is certainly not limited to the people who are currently playing the ElDewrito mod. Lots of people probably have no idea that this thing exists, much less want to illegally download an executable file that was taken from Microsoft without permission. Those sort of things are outside the scope of many normal people, and so they don't do that. And it takes some sort of tech savvy. There's not really tech support for this stuff outside of what these developers do. And so let's just say that Microsoft a Microsoft release has the potential to be profitable well beyond the community that's built up. But this community, which is enduring in spite of the technical prowess required and the technical difficulties associated with a project like this, they have a thriving community. Microsoft has a proven market that they can look into developing this for. And they kind of have this mod team to thank and that community to thank if they do decide to go in the direction of releasing a product. They've talked about releasing products for the PC for the past couple years. They have neglected to really do so. So if they do, again, they owe a debt of thanks to this community for keeping their intellectual property fresh, alive, and pouring time and effort into it. So Microsoft is treading carefully here. ElDewrito needs to talk to some attorneys because they probably have more bargaining power than they realize. Microsoft does not, like they say that Microsoft has to enforce its intellectual property or whatever. They're not required to enforce the intellectual property here or else find it abandoned. There's no one can be under the impression that the Halo property itself is abandoned. The Halo IP, the Halo trademark are clearly not abandoned properties. Maybe this particular executable file could be argued to be abandoned, but I don't know that in and of itself is enough to insulate people using it. So anyway, guys, I hope this has been kind of an interesting little update for you. I really wanted to stress the role of lawyers that's outside of court, and that will be Microsoft's lawyers' role in addressing this community carefully, but asserting their rights and protecting their rights. And ElDewrito they should be contacting a legal team to find out how to navigate the situation with Microsoft, because if ElDewrito plays this right, I think they can partner with Microsoft. They can get Microsoft to acknowledge the work that they've put into it. They can potentially monetize this relationship or sell assets to Microsoft, or even pitch resumes if they want to work for 343 Industries on a PC port of the project if Microsoft decides to take off. Plus, their mods, they own potentially some copyright interests in modded materials that go beyond things Microsoft has created. So they wouldn't own any of the artwork, but if they came up with new game modes, if they came up with new vehicles for the Halo universe, or new weapons, or some sort of new thing that's based on the Halo thing but is significantly unique and new, they would own copyrights in that, and Microsoft may want to purchase those assets back from them if they go into development. So ElDewrito should definitely be consulting some intellectual property lawyers in the very near future. And if the community wants to see something happen with this, they should probably support them. So, like I said, hope this is interesting to you. This was an interesting news story that was sent to me today, and I kind of wanted to cover it outside of the context of the other content on this channel. If you are covering this story, if you're a content creator out there on YouTube or some other medium, you stumble across my video and you're going to cover this story, and you have any legal questions about this, or you want some info or direction on what certain aspects of this looks like as the case goes on, feel free to hit me up on any of the social media links down below. If you want to contact me through YouTube, that's fine. If you want to contact me on Twitter, that's great. Those are easy ways to contact me. So please feel free to do that, and I'd be happy to talk to you about this and help you generate the content for your audiences as well. Thank you guys very much for watching. I appreciate it very much. Today is a great day for me, as we have passed 4,000 subscribers as of the recording of this video. So that's pretty cool for a channel I started completely on a whim, just making fun of this one guy who sued another guy for an obscene amount of money. And if you want to learn more about that, watch the lawsuit videos that are featured on the channel, and sit back and have a laugh. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, of course, like and share and all that fun stuff. Y'all have a good night.